It started with the elk, not the sound of them, the silence where they used to be. I had been listening to elk in this valley for 15 years. I knew exactly how they sounded moving through the grass at night, the bugling, the low calls back and forth between the cows and the calves. I knew it so well I stopped hearing it the same way you stop hearing a clock ticking in your own house. It was just there, part of the night, until it wasn't. I have worked restricted area patrol in Yellowstone for 15 years. I have been out here in blizzards, in 100-degree heat, in the pitch black of a moonless October night, when you cannot see your hand in front of your face. I have seen this park in every mood it has. Nothing prepared me for what started that August. Nothing happened like this, not once in 15 years, not even close. It began on a hot, humid night in the middle of summer. The kind of night that feels wrong up here. The high country is not supposed to feel like Georgia in July, but that night it did. The air was heavy and still, the kind of heat that just sits on everything and refuses to move. Even the thermal vents to the west were louder than usual, pushing harder, the sulfur smell thick enough to taste in the back of your throat. I was 2 hours into my shift, walking the stretch between the second and third checkpoints on the northeastern interior route, when the elk went quiet, all of them, at once. I stopped walking and listened. The bugling stopped first. 3 bulls had been working the edge of the grassland to my north, going at it the way they do in August, loud and steady. They stopped mid-call, not like they finished, like someone cut the sound with a knife. Then the cows and calves went quiet. Then the coyotes I had been tracking by ear for the past hour, 2 ridges to the south. Then the owls. Then the bugs. Then even the thermal vents seemed to pull back, not silent exactly, but softer, like the whole landscape turned itself down to make room for something else. I looked at my watch. 11:03 at night. I have heard this park go quiet before. I know what it sounds like when a predator moves through and every living thing freezes up. I know the hush before a big storm rolls in. I know all the different kinds of quiet this place makes. What happened at 11:03 that night was none of those. This was something coming in from outside, like weather moving in from somewhere that is not on any map. I got on the radio and told dispatch what I was hearing, or what I was not hearing. The response came back fast, a voice I did not know, not my regular overnight dispatcher, somebody else, calm, unhurried. They told me to note the time, stay on my route, and do not try to find where the silence was coming from. I asked what was causing it. They said, get to checkpoint 3, log it, and call in when you arrive. Then nothing. I had a laminated rule card I was given on my first day 15 years ago. 15 years. I knew those rules the same way I knew the trail under my boots. Rule 1 said, do not try to find the source of the silence. I had read that rule on day 1 and thought it was just paperwork, the kind of thing someone writes to cover themselves. Standing out there that August night with 11 square miles of Yellowstone making no sound at all, I understood that rule for the first time. Someone wrote it because someone else tried to find the source. I did not want to know how that ended. I put my head down and walked to checkpoint 3. The silence did not break, not at checkpoint 3, not at 4, not at 5. I walked my full route that night inside a wall of quiet that followed me from checkpoint to checkpoint like it was keeping pace. The only sounds were my boots on the trail and my own breathing and the occasional crackle of the radio when dispatch checked in. Every time they called, I gave them the same answer, still quiet, still en route. No change. At 4 in the morning, I was at checkpoint 6, the last one before the long walk back to the access gate, when I heard something that was not silence and was not any sound this park had ever made in my 15 years of working it. It came from the river drainage below checkpoint 6. A low sound, steady like a hum, but not quite a hum. Not mechanical, not an animal, somewhere in between. The kind of sound you feel in your chest before your ears fully pick it up. I stood at the top of the ridge above the drainage, and listened, and the hair on my arms stood up the way it does when you grab an electric fence, and your body knows before your brain does that something is wrong. The rules said, do not enter the river drainage between 2 in the morning and 3 in the morning. It was 4. The restricted window was passed. There was nothing in the rules that said I could not go down there at 4 in the morning. I told myself that. I stood at the top of that ridge and told myself the window was over and I was clear to proceed, and my boots did not move. I stood there for a long time. The sound kept going, steady, patient, like it had been going for a long time before I got there and would keep going long after I left. There was something about the patience of it that got to me more than the sound itself. It was not new. Whatever was making that sound was not doing it for the first time that night. It had been doing it for a long time. Maybe every night. Maybe I had just never been standing in the right spot at the right time to hear it before. I got on the radio. I told dispatch I was at checkpoint 6 and there was a sound coming from the drainage. I described it as best I could. Low, steady, not animal, not mechanical. The response came back after a pause that was a little too long for comfort. They told me to complete my route and exit the zone through the access gate. Do not go into the drainage, come straight out. I asked if they knew what the sound was. Another pause. Then they said, it has always been there. We will talk in the morning. We did not talk in the morning. When I got to the access gate and signed out, there was an envelope taped to the sign-out board with my name on it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 6 additional rules on it. No letterhead, no explanation of where they came from or who wrote them. Just 6 rules in plain typed text. The first one said, the sound from the drainage is not new. It predates the park. Do not attempt to record it. The second one said, on nights when the silence arrives before 11, something has changed in the zone. Note the exact time the silence begins and radio dispatch immediately. The third one said, if the silence arrives before 10 in the evening, do not complete your route. Go directly to the access gate and exit the zone. Do not stop at any checkpoint. Do not radio dispatch until you are outside the gate. The fourth one said the animals go silent because they can sense the boundary shifting. When the boundary shifts, what is normally on the other side of it is closer to the surface than usual. On those nights, the rules are not enough. Distance is the only thing that helps. The fifth one said, you have been in this zone for 15 years. It knows your pattern. This is not a threat. This is information. A known pattern is safer than an unknown one. Do not change your route. Do not change your timing. Consistency is the only thing working in your favor right now. The sixth one said, the night you heard the sound from the drainage was not the first time it came close to the surface. It was the first time it let you hear it. There is a difference. The fact that you did not go into the drainage matters more than you know. Remember that decision. You will need to make it again. I read that sheet standing at the sign-out board in the gray light of 5:30 in the morning, with the park waking up around me, the birds starting, the first light on the eastern ridge, the world going back to normal the way it does every single morning out here. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in my shirt pocket and drove home. That was 8 months ago. The silence has come back 19 times since that August night, sometimes at 11, sometimes earlier, once at 10:22, which was close enough to 10 that I cut my route short and walked straight to the gate the way the third rule said. I do not know what would have happened if I had stayed. I did not stay. The sound from the drainage came back 4 times, always after 3 in the morning, always when I was at checkpoint 6 or walking the ridge above it. I have not gone into the drainage, not once, not even close. The 6th rule said I would need to make that decision again, and it was right. Every time I stand on that ridge and hear it, The decision is there waiting for me, same as before. And every time I make the same choice. I stay on the ridge, I finish my log, I walk back to the gate. Here is what 15 years in this zone and 8 months of new rules have taught me. The park does not belong to us, not the parts I patrol. We manage the edges of it. We show up and we walk our routes and we follow our rules, and we are consistent because consistency is the only currency that means anything out here. The thing in the drainage, whatever shifts the boundary on the nights the silence comes early, whatever the elk and the coyotes and the owls can sense coming from a mile away and go dead quiet for. It has been here longer than the park, longer than the people before the park, longer than anything with a name that I know of. It is not waiting for us to figure it out. It is not waiting for anything. It is just here, doing what it does, and we are the people who agreed to walk the perimeter of it in the dark and make sure the boundary holds for one more night. The silence will come again tonight. It comes most nights now. I will be at checkpoint 2 when it arrives, and I will note the time, and I will keep walking. That is the job. After 15 years, it is still just the job. I want to tell you about the night the silence came at 9:45. I had been on the ridge above checkpoint 4, doing a routine log entry when it happened. No warning, no buildup. 1 second the valley was full of sound. The elk, the coyotes, the bugs, all of it, and then it was gone. Just like that. I looked at my watch because I always look at my watch when it happens, and the watch said 9:45, and my stomach dropped the way it drops when you miss a step in the dark. 9:45 is not 10. 9:45 is not even close to 10. The third rule said if the silence arrives before 10, go straight to the gate. Do not stop. Do not radio until you are outside. I closed my logbook and I started walking. Not running. I want to be clear about that because there is a difference, and the difference matters out here. Running is panic, and panic is a broken pattern, and a broken pattern is the worst thing you can be in this zone after dark. I walked fast, steady, the same pace I use when the weather turns bad and I need to cover ground without burning out. Head down, boots on the trail, eyes forward. Checkpoint 5 was between me and the gate. The rules said, do not stop at any checkpoint on the way out. I walked straight past the marker without slowing and did not write a single thing in the log and did not look back to see if it was still standing. The silence around me was the worst I had ever felt, worse than August, worse than any of the 19 times before. It was pressing in from all sides, the way water presses in when you are too deep, that physical weight I told you about earlier, the kind you feel in your ears and your chest at the same time. But heavier than usual, much heavier, like whatever was on the other side of the boundary was not just close to the surface tonight, like it was at the surface, like the boundary itself was the only thing left between me and it, and the boundary was thin in a way it had never been thin before. I kept walking. The trail between checkpoint 5 and the access gate is 1.5 miles. I know every foot of it. I have walked it more times than I can count. That night, it felt longer, not in a way I could measure, not in a way my GPS would have shown anything different, but in the way that a hallway feels longer when you are a kid and you're walking through your house in the dark and you know something is behind you. Your legs know the distance is the same. The rest of you is not so sure. I was maybe 1/2 mile from the gate when I heard the footsteps. They were behind me on the trail, not the studied, even sound I had heard on other nights, not something practicing how to move. These were confident, long strides, covering ground fast. Whatever it was not following me at my pace. It was closing the distance. I did not run. I want you to understand how hard that was. Every single instinct I had was screaming at me to run. 15 years of being out here and trusting my instincts, and my instincts had never been more unanimous about anything in my life than they were in that moment. Run. Run right now. Get to the gate. and get through it, and do not look back. I did not run. I walked, same pace, same stride, consistent, because the fifth rule said, consistency is the only thing working in your favor, and I believed it then, and I believe it now, and I held on to it like it was the only solid thing in a very unsolid night. The footsteps got closer, 20 feet behind me, then 15, then 10. I could feel the difference in the air the way you feel a big truck passing close on the highway. That displacement, that sense of mass and presence. My hands were shaking. My jaw was clamped shut so tight my back teeth ached, but my feet kept moving at the same pace they had been moving all night. At 10 feet, the footsteps stopped. Just stopped. The same way everything else stopped in this zone when the silence came. Total and immediate. I did not slow down. I did not speed up. I kept walking, and I did not look back, and 30 seconds later I could see the access gate in my flashlight beam, the steel frame catching the light, the padlock on the outside, the sign-out board on the post beside it. I went through the gate. I locked it behind me. I stood on the outside of it with my hand on the steel frame, and I breathed, in and out, slow, until my hands stopped shaking. Then I got on the radio. Dispatch picked up on the first call. I told them the silence had come at 9:45 and I had exited per the third rule, and something had followed me on the trail to within 10 feet of me before stopping. There was a pause on the other end, longer than usual, long enough that I checked the radio to make sure the connection was still there. Then the dispatcher said, "You walked out. You did not run." It was not a question. "Yes," I said, "I walked." Another pause, then they said, "Go home. Do not come back for 3 days. We will call you when the zone is ready." I asked what ready meant. They said, "The boundary needs time to reset after a night like this. 3 days minimum, sometimes longer. We will call you." Then they signed off. I stood at the gate for a little while after that, looking in through the bars at the trail I had just come down, the darkness beyond my flashlight range, the silence that was still sitting on the zone like a weight. I thought about the footsteps, 10 feet. Whatever had been behind me had gotten to within 10 feet and then stopped. I have turned that over in my mind every day for the past 8 months, trying to understand what stopped it. I think it was the walking. I think the consistent pace, the unchanged pattern, the refusal to break and run. I think that was the only thing that held the boundary at 10 feet instead of letting it come closer. The fifth rule says a known pattern is safer than an unknown one. A running man is an unknown pattern. A man walking his usual pace even when everything in him wants to run, that is a known pattern. That is a man who understands the rules. And whatever was behind me, on that trail, whatever had come up through the thin boundary on the worst night I have ever worked out here, it recognized the pattern and it stopped. That is my best understanding. I could be wrong. I have been wrong about things out here before. But I walked out of that zone on the worst night it has ever given me, and I am still here to tell you about it, and I will take that explanation until someone gives me a better one. They called me back after 4 days, not 3. 4. I did not ask why it took an extra day. I showed up for my shift, checked in on the radio, and walked my route. The silence came at 11:18 that first night back. Right on time. Almost normal. The elk went quiet, and the coyotes went quiet, and the valley held its breath for the hours. It always holds its breath, and then before 5 in the morning, everything came back. The coyotes first, then the owls, then the elk, one bull starting up hesitant like he was testing the air, and then the others joining in until the whole valley was loud again, and the night was just a night. I stood at the access gate that morning and faced the interior for 60 seconds the way I always do. The zone looked the same as it always looks at dawn. Gray light on the grassland, mist on the drainage, the thermal vents to the west sending up their slow white columns into the early sky. Quiet, but the right kind of quiet now, the kind that belongs here. I turned and walked to my truck and drove home. 2 months left in this posting. I have said that before, and I will keep saying it until it is 1 month and then none. When my last night comes, I will walk my route the same way I have walked it for 15 years. Same pace, same checkpoints, same log entries. I will stand at the gate for 60 seconds and I will face the interior and I will acknowledge whatever is in there the way I always have, and then I will leave my rule card at the checkpoint 7 marker the way I was told to, and I will walk out and I will not look back. Whoever you are reading this, wherever you are in your first days or weeks or months of this posting, I need you to hear what I am about to say as plainly as I can say it. The night will come when the silence arrives early. It will come when you least expect it, and it will be worse than anything I have described here, because the describing of a thing is never as bad as the living of it. When that night comes, you will want to run. Every part of you will want to run. Do not run. Walk your pace. Keep your pattern. Trust the rules even when the rules are the only thing you have left to trust. The boundary holds because we hold it, one steady step at a time, one consistent night after another. That is how it has always worked out here, and that is how it will keep working long after both of us are gone. Walk out. Do not run. And whatever you hear behind you on that trail, do not look back.